Welcome back to Paul's Bass Academy. I appreciate you joining me for another video. The question today is it safe to launch my boat into the Clinch River below Norris Dam to trout fish? The answer is maybe. The next question is, have I tried it? And the answer is yes, I have. And today I'm going to talk about what the results were, and we're also going to be installing an aluminum prop on my boat and temporarily replacing the stainless steel. So stay tuned. So, okay, I recently asked a question on another forum to people who fish for trout below the Norris Dam in the Clinch River if they thought it would be safe for me to take a boat this size to trout fish in that water. Now, I know a lot of you are not going to be familiar with that area, but below Norris Dam there is a boat launch in an area called Miller's Island, and when they are generating, at least one generator, as soon as you launch your boat there, you're in about 2 feet of water. I think it's safe to say about 2 feet of water. If you let your boat drift from there downstream for more than just a few seconds, you'll find yourself in 1.5 feet of water really quick. And as long as you get in the water and instantly travel upstream, within 100 feet to 200 feet, you'll be in 3 feet of water fairly quick, but you still have to watch for rocks. This boat is 18.5 feet long. It has a 115 horsepower Mercury 4-stroke engine on it, and it has a stainless steel prop. And I asked several people, is this boat going to be okay in there, or am I really pushing my luck? And I got a mixture of answers. I had some people who said there's absolutely no way I would launch my boat there, and I had some other people who said, sure, you can launch your boat there, you're just going to have to be really careful. Well, I was really careful, and this worked out really well for the most part. But at some point, I managed to drift across one rock, and I did a little bit of damage to my boat, and we're going to take a quick peek at that. None of this is what I would call the end of the world. If you're looking at the propeller from this side, you're probably not even going to be able to see anything. There's one slight scuff there, one tiny ding here, and a tiny little ding right there. And then again on this side, there's just a little bit of a scuff that you can probably see. If I put the camera here, you can see a little bit of a scuff, and it's got a little sharp point right there on it now. So I didn't exactly destroy my boat. I may have actually scratched the foot up just a little too, but it was just a matter of seconds of not paying attention to what I was doing, and I was trying to cross the river while I was going upstream. I'm going to temporarily switch over to an aluminum prop, and today's video is going to be about installing that prop, and then I'm going to take it to the lake and see how it feels, how it handles in the water, and if I can tell the difference between that and the stainless prop. Now, the prop that I have installed is a Mercury Marine Tempest Plus. Mercury Marine Tempest Plus, and it is a 21 pitch prop, as you can see here. And it's about 14 5/8 or 14 3/4 in diameter. I can't exactly remember, but it's a 3-blade stainless prop. The issue with these props, if you go to replace one, is I don't think you're going to find one of these new for less than around $620 to $30. I believe that does include the hub kit that comes on the inside of it, but that's quite a bit of money to spend on a prop. So I don't want to take a chance on damaging this prop any worse than I already did. So I went out and I purchased this brand called Solas, and they have an aluminum propeller that's called a Rubex. The box tells you right here that the hub kit does not come with this, but I ordered it separately when I ordered the propeller. So I'm dropping down to a 19-pitch propeller to see if I can't get the boat to plane out just a little bit faster. It's a less expensive propeller. Out the door for this propeller, including shipping, the prop, and the hub kit, I think I have $130 invested in it, or $132. That is really hard to beat. So if I get in there and I accidentally tear this prop completely up, probably not even worth trying to have it repaired. It's probably just time to go buy another one, but I sure didn't want to damage my stainless prop. So let's get busy installing this prop, and then when I'm finished with that, we're going to take this boat to the lake, and I'm going to see if I can tell any difference between that one, between the new one and the one that's already installed on there. So let's first look at what kind of tools that I'm going to be using today to install this prop. I've got a flathead screwdriver that's fairly large in size. I've got a 1/2-inch drive wrench, and in my case this is a 1 1/16 inch prop nut that I'm going to be trying to take off. So I have a socket for 1 16th inch. I have a hammer that I may have to use later. And then something that not a whole lot of people have is a really nice torque wrench. This is not one of the most expensive torque wrenches, but you can get these on Amazon fairly inexpensive. This is a Tecton. It's a 1/2 inch drive because you do want to torque these propeller nuts back to specification. All right, so the very first thing that we have to do is get this, I think it's called a tab washer, off this. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very well or not, but inside this you can see these little pins that are holding on to this. I'm just going to bend that out on both sides of this. But once you get that started, you should be able to take a hammer and kind of flatten that out the rest of the way. I've got the top one off, and that's the bottom one. So you may or may not be able to see now that I have these little tabs flattened out here and here. So the next part of this is how do you get this nut off and how do you hold this propeller? And a lot of people think this is going to be a very difficult part of this, but there's a lot of different tricks you can do here. It's really not that tight, honestly. A lot of people will put a block of wood up in here where my hand is, and that they will block this so that it can't move. But because I've done this before, I know that there's actually not a lot of pressure on this. I'm just going to hold this with my hand and just turn this. And as you can see, it really did not take that much pressure. All right, and that is loose. Okay, so now I have the nut off. Here's the tabbed washer, is what this is called. You can see these have notches that are going to hold them in place. And then these little tabs are what I bent flat so that I could actually loosen this. And this whole thing is going to come out like this. Okay, so now that we have that off, we're going to take this off. This is called the thrust washer. Okay, it took me a little bit of work to get this thrust washer off this, which I was really surprised about. I honestly could have just left this on, but the hub kit that I bought came with its own. And even though they look identical, I'm going to swap this out for the one that came with the kit. So I'm going to keep this for my stainless. All right, so I got that off with a few very, very gentle taps around the edges of that thrust washer, because this is a tapered shaft, and once it gets to the very end of this, it's tapered in, it tapers out to a larger diameter. And so that thrust washer was kind of hung up on this. I had to coax it very gently, very, very gently. I didn't want to take any chance on breaking anything else around there. So I tapped it just a little until I thought it was loose. Put just a little bit of pressure on it from both sides and it popped off. Okay, so here's the new one, and this is the first thing we're going to install. But before we install that, put some grease on this shaft. So we don't want any issues taking this other propeller off when the time comes. So I've coated that good with grease. I'm going to coat the inside of this. And I'm going to drop this on here. And that's going to go all the way up nice and flat. It spins, it sits on there absolutely flat. So I'm going to install the hub inside the prop. There are plenty of videos online about how to install these, so I'm not going to take a lot of time to mess with how you do that. So let's get the kit installed in this. Okay, so let's get some terminology straight here. I watched this video after I made it and I realized I had left off a very important word. In my right hand, I am holding a hub sleeve. It is a black piece of rubber. It has a brass-looking insert into it with the female spline. In my left hand, I'm holding the actual propeller, and the hole in the middle of that propeller is the hub. So the hub is on the prop, and that is where the hub sleeve depresses into. With the threaded section, you can tell where the splines are going to go. We're going to install that first into the back of this hub. It can't go in if you misalign it. There are notches in the propeller for where this goes. So basically line that up. You don't have to push this flush if you don't want to. As you tighten the threads, it will pretty much do that for you. But now that I have that on there, we've got the thrust washer on there. We've got the hub. We're going to line this up and eventually hope that it matches up with the threads, which it just did. I'm going to make sure there's no play in this. It sounds excellent. There's no play, no vibrations. There's, other than the rubber, just a little bit bending in there. It's a very solid feel. This is the aft spacer. Now that barely is fitting on there, but the reason that that's just barely making any connection is because I don't necessarily have the hub fully seated. That's not going to happen until I start tightening down this the prop nut. So I've got this on. I'm going to drop this tab washer. It's a little bit of a different style than the one that came with it. Right now it's just kind of floating here. And then here's the nut. This nut has a nylon insert, so you'll be able to spin it up to a certain point, and once it gets up to that nylon, you're not going to be able to spin that by hand anymore. And what that's doing is it's actually pulling, now that I've gotten it so far along, it is actually pulling the hub inside the prop, and it is seating it for me. Instead of me having to hammer it and be careful and try to put some kind of pipe on it and hammer it down in there, I'm allowing this to do that for me. And so I'm just going to kind of turn this. I'm not putting very much pressure at all on this. Now, it just met a very solid end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this back off. All right. I'm going to take this nut back off for a second. I'm going to take this tab, what they're calling it a tab washer. I'm going to take this aft spacer off, and now that sits firmly down on there. And what that has done is it has pulled, now I don't know if you can see this, I'm going to get you a better look at this. The thrust washer on here has driven the hub up inside where I couldn't push it. It pulled it further up inside there, and now it is nice and flush. It's totally flush up inside. As you can see, it's sitting there, and it's pushed further in than I could do by hand. That kept me from having to hit it or drive it with a hammer or something like that. So now you can see that it's inside. So that took me a few extra seconds. Now, next thing that you're going to want to know, because this is going to vary for every boat, is what is the torque spec for this. I would like to find this specifically on a Mercury website, and I have found a second source now online that says this is 55 pounds of torque. Whether that works for your boat, your propeller, your outboard drive, whatever it is, you're going to have to research. So I'm going to dial in on my Tecton. So I'm at 55 foot-pounds of torque. What I'm doing is I'm watching the tabs on the tab washer and lining them up with that aft spacer as I'm applying pressure, and I'm looking for 55 pounds of torque. So you can see that I ended up putting a block in this after all to get the last little bit of pressure that I needed so I could torque it down to 55 pounds. Just checking this. And so now I'm going to pick 3 of these
and just sink them into the opening to secure it. I'm just going to take this screwdriver and very gently work these tabs down. There's one. In this particular case, you're going to get 3. And once you get it started, actually, the better way to do this is to leave the flat head screwdriver flat. Just to put the screwdriver flat into the opening. I think it's time to try it out next.
So we're out on Watts Bar, came out of Caney Creek to do a test on this new propeller, and I've already given it 1 or 2 test runs just to get a feel for it before I started trying to record with this camera, because I wanted to see what it was going to feel like. And the one thing that I've noticed immediately is that with this 19 pitch propeller on here, I am not going to be able to run wide open throttle. The amount of torque that I'm feeling down low when I just gun it is amazing. I'm going to show you a couple of speed tests here. Going to be a lot harder, as I'm going to have to try to drive the boat in just a straight shot and let you see the RPMs. Are you ready? Woohoo! Blowing my hair everywhere. So here's what I'm finding, is that I am reaching my maximum RPMs. I still have throttle left. I'm running, I think I saw 45 indicated on the speedometer, and the GPS was telling me 41. So I'm only going to be running about 41 miles per hour. But what is amazing to me is that I'm getting to there really, really quick. The torque I'm getting on this 19 pitch propeller is amazing. I have been getting, with the stainless steel that came with my boat, it's a 21 pitch stainless steel Mercury Tempest. I've been running about 6,400 RPMs wide open throttle, and that is about 47 to 48 miles per hour. And so with this, it looks like my max speed is going to be about 42 miles per hour without over revving this engine. So that's giving me a good feeling for what it's like. And now I'm just going to go I'm just going to go run. In fact, it looks like there's a massive storm headed in my direction, so I don't know if I'll be out here very long. So, God bless, good luck out on the water.